Who owns Lake Martin and why should you care? In this video, I'm gonna go over the history of Lake Martin and who owns the lake, and then how it might affect you as a buyer or seller on the lake. Okay, who owns Lake Martin? The short answer is really two companies. Russell Lands and Alabama Power own the land around the lake, and I'm gonna tell you why. All right, so history lesson is that this is Martin Dam. It's right here on the south side of the lake, and it dammed what was originally the Tallapoosa River. If I can make this thing wiggle through right. It dammed the Tallapoosa River, and they did that in 1926 to get a hydroelectric dam. And Alabama Power, who is now owned by Southern Company, owns the hydroelectric dam. And so when they did that, they bought up all of the dirt that was under 491 feet of sea level. They bought up all that dirt, and then when they flooded it, number one thing to know is they own the dirt that is under the 491 foot sea level on Lake Martin. They own all that. But they also own a ton of land around Lake Martin, and you need to know that too. All right, now, so if you can imagine yourself back in 1920, and you're a company like Alabama Power, and you're trying to get damming rights for the Tallapoosa River, which is a huge river in, I think it's the best river in Alabama. Anyway, they're trying to get damming rights to do so. So they come to town, right? They blow in from the big city, and they realize that lo and behold, there is already a hydroelectric dam on the Tallapoosa River up here in Alex City, and it was owned by a guy named Benjamin Russell. And Benjamin Russell owned a textile and apparel company called Russell. And back then, Alex City was a young mill town, and one of those kind of classic mill towns where like everybody either works for the mill or their cousin works for the mill. One of those type of mill towns. But Benjamin Russell, really a foresighted guy, and he made a hydroelectric dam and drew power and got himself electricity to run his plants in Alex City, but he had a dam there. So when the people from the big city lawyers came from Birmingham and wanted to dam the Tallapoosa, they bought damming rights from Benjamin Russell. And so they end up swapping him damming rights for a ton of land. Here's what's happened with the damming rights and how it affected real estate. So they bought damming rights. Now, Benjamin Russell already owned a place called Russell Farms. It's kind of here-ish, you know, in general. So what they ended up doing, Alabama Power said, all right, we can own damming rights, but we'll give you a bunch of land around the lake. So this is a generalization. But in general, if you look at a map of Lake Martin, you can find Highway 63. The Russell corridor, if you will, is going to be in the middle of the lake. Okay, it's totally, once you start driving down 63 and get to Kalijah, it's all in this area here, because this is where Willow Point, the Willows, Willow Glen, all this stuff is. This is where the Ridge is, Windermere, Wendover, all those, the Heritage, yeah, that's new. All that stuff's right there, and that's why. You look across the bridge right over here in Trillium. You look over here, all these are Russell cabins. All those are Russell cabins out to the Ridge. But that's how the Russells got a majority of that land, was through I guess they swapped it for the damming rights. And so therefore, if you look at in general now somebody's gonna watch this video and go, well, I know you're not. No, I'm just saying in general, out on the outsides, that's Alabama Power land. So out here on the eastern extremes and out there on the western extremes, that was Alabama Power land. All right, so why does this matter to real estate? It matters a lot, because if you are in a Russell Lands neighborhood that I've pointed out here, you're going to know that they have covenants in their neighborhoods that are similar throughout the whole lake. Like for instance, you can't have a covered dock, and that's, you know, neither here nor there. But if you want a covered dock, you don't need to buy in there, and you also can't do things like you can't rent your house short term. Again, neither here nor there, but that is why the history might affect either whether you're going to buy or sell. If you're selling, you need to know like what sort of buyer is going to buy your house, right? So how does that apply to Alabama Power stuff? Alabama Power stuff, Alabama Power historically has, they've sold 2 or 3 smaller neighborhoods that are like high covenant neighborhoods, but by and large, the Alabama Power lots that they have sold, like they used to lease the lots. That's what everybody, a lot of time growing up thinks about Alabama Power, is they were leased. So like back in the 70s and 80s, you would own the bricks and sticks, but you would pay a lease on the dirt to Alabama Power. Well, rock along 90s, they started kind of selling those lots back to the homeowners. They kind of got out of that phase. And so really leased lots are a pretty rare bird. I sold one leased lot house 2 years ago. And that was the first one I'd sold in like 2 years. So they used to be 10% of the market though, back in 05, but now I'd say they're less than 1/3% of the market. So, but what does that mean for you? Because the covenants for Alabama Power homes are different as well. You can have a covered dock and all that sort of thing, but they have covenants like you can't split the lot, you can't have more than one house, you can't have a commercial business there. And so we see this a lot on the upswings. Like you'll see a little cabin on a big, nice lot. And somebody will say, hey, I'm gonna buy that, I'm gonna split that up, and I'm gonna have 3 houses there. Well, no, you can't. Well, why not? Because that's a former Alabama power lot. So that doesn't mean it's leased, but that slang, us real estate agents have a lot of slang, and that's one of the slang things we say, oh, that's an old Alabama power lot. So when we say that out of our mouth, we automatically know that means you can't split the lot, you can't build more than one house, and you can't have a commercial enterprise. So that's how the history of the lake affects it. Now, are there any areas on the lake that aren't owned by either Russell Lands or Alabama Power? And the answer is yes. But I would challenge you, unless you're like Ted Lasso with darts and can just like hit a dart like precisely, you can't throw a dartboard and hit it. It is so rare. Like there's in the Young's Island area up towards, my little map is not very good, but you know, Young's Island is one of those very rare exceptions of some appreciable land. You might occasionally, I'll run into like a 50-foot lot here or there that wasn't originally owned by them, and so it's unrestricted. That's another slang term we throw around a lot, is unrestricted. What does that mean? That means that the covenants of either Alabama Power or Russell Lands don't apply. And like I said, it's very, very rare. But even if you run into something that a realtor says is unrestricted, or if a realtor says, hey, this set of covenant applies, I always advise you need to do the old presidential thing of trust yet verify, right? You wanna go in with good intentions, but a smart buyer and a smart seller runs the covenants on their stuff to make sure they know what they're doing. And I say seller because it applies to sellers too. I have a seller coming up now that needed to get a survey. We looked at what they wanted to sell, and my first advice was we need to get a survey because we weren't sure of what covenants applied. We weren't sure where the lot lines were. And so this type of history affects a home sale too. So I hope I hadn't bored you too much, but I do get that question a lot, who owns Lake Martin? So I hope I've helped here. And if this has been any sort of value for you, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. That's the easiest, no-cost way to show me what I'm doing is giving you value. Or better yet, if I could be an agent for you, and if you think we might be a good fit, give me a call or a text, and let's see if I can help you. I'd love to, I could. Thanks.